140,000. 140,000. This is the number of war deaths caused by the atomic bomb dropped down to the city center of Hiroshima in World War II. It is said that the atomic bomb dropped from the bomber aircraft was exploded at the height of 600 meters from the ground of city center of Hiroshima. By the way, the population of Hiroshima back in 1945 before the bombardment was 350,000. 350,000. So about 40% of entire population in Hiroshima was wiped away in a moment by atomic bomb. 73,884. 73,884. This is the number of war deaths caused by the atomic bomb dropped down to the city center of Nagasaki. By the way, the population of Nagasaki back in 1945 before the bombardment was 240,000. 240,000. About 30% of entire population in Nagasaki was wiped away in a moment by atomic bomb. 367,923. 367,923. This is the total number of victims of the radiation sickness from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this number contains the victim who developed radiation sickness after the end of World War II. 581,807. 581,807. This is the final amount of casualties caused by the atomic bombardment in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. By the way, for your reference, the total number of war deaths in the United States back in World War II was 418,500. 418,500. Of course, this final amount of casualties includes the injury victims of radiation sickness. But even total amount of death by this bombardment reaches half of the number of war deaths in the United States in the World War II, which was 213,884. Moreover, these casualties were caused in the blink of eyes. So this is totally different level from the situation in the United States, where 90% of war deaths consist of mostly soldiers, and they were dead while they fought against enemies in the battlefield in World War II. Can you imagine how terrible it was that 140,000 people were wiped away in a moment, in the blink of eyes on the same day? 3,000 meters. 3,000 meters. 3 kilometers. This is the radius distance of the area that was completely burned to the ground from the center of explosion of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. So only 7 seconds after the bombardment, the bomb burned to nothing with 3 kilometers radius from the center of explosion of atomic bomb. 4,000 degrees Celsius. 4,000 degrees Celsius. This is the temperature of heat ray emitted from the bomb after 0.2 seconds from the explosion. This heat ray burned everything indiscriminately on the ground, which caused 140,000 deaths in Hiroshima. By the way, the temperature that melts iron is about 1,500 degrees Celsius. Speaking of 4,000 degrees Celsius, this is as hot as a sunspot of the sun. So 43 seconds after the bombardment, the bomb exploded with 2 bright sparkles at the height of 600 meters from the ground of the city center of Hiroshima, and the bomb created the fireball, and the temperature of the center of the fireball was about 1 million degrees Celsius, and the fireball grew to 200 meters radius 1 second after the bombardment. So the number of casualties are still estimated in Japan. So regarding Hiroshima's atomic bomb disaster, nobody will know the accurate amount of victims and casualties. Back in 1945, August 6th, before the bombardment, the residents living in Hiroshima was not only Japanese. There were German priests, American people, Japanese American people, Chinese people, Chinese and Taiwanese from Japanese colonies, and Southeast Asian people who came to Japan to study abroad, and also American war prisoners. This was really cruel. Were these non-Japanese residents, were these non-Japanese victims in Hiroshima inevitable sacrifices for retaliation to Japan? So you might understand how terrible and cruel the atomic bomb strategy was back in World War II. So we have to always keep the memory of this terrible destructive war disaster alive as one of the great lessons of ours, in a sense that we must not make the situation that allows us to use nuclear powers, nuclear bombs, nuclear atomic bombs, even in the pretext of justice of retaliation. So the destructive power was too dreadful to make it to the, make it the last-ditch measure for any countries around the world that equilibrates the power balance among countries in the world. The destructivity of nuclear bombs power has been making progress, I believe, since World War II, unmistakably, I think. So this is a Pandora's box. This is a Pandora's box we shouldn't have unboxed in the past history. So this is the act that even frightens a god. The results of tremendous amounts of casualties caused by atomic bombardment should be a great lesson for us, as I said. But major powers around the world still take advantage of the nuclear bombs as one of the policies of national securities and one of the measures to contain the mutual countries with a different ideology. We have to remember that we are still exposed to the risk of facing a war disaster by nuclear bombs possessed by nuclear powers in the world.